Here we go. All right, we are live. This is Skye with
Hanscomyn,
hanscomyn, back with Ronin Radio. I am still in
where are
Nairobi.
you?
I am
Nairobi.
Nairobi,
I am in
waiting,
Malaga.
waiting to venture out into the world with my little family. And you have just arrived in Malaga, Spain, a place I know well.
Hey, the place we met,
Yes,
2018.
porque lo merezco, because I deserve it.
Merezco.
Inside, inside joke. I'm not sure I conjugated that correctly, but
Merezco.
men, Hans, men do not wince nor cry aloud.
Yes.
But what do men do if they hear other men wince and cry aloud? Do they pretend that they do not hear it? I have to admit, I've heard you wince once or twice.
What did you do?
So, yeah, Hans, why don't you set this up? Because this is a challenge you I've often heard you bring up. Like, what do I do with these guys who complain, who don't take full responsibility? Um, and you'd love to help them. You'd love to be a client, a coach or an elder. What do you do? I mean, this has been your challenge, right?
Well, yeah, I've had clients, friends, a father who who complains so much that it triggers me, that it annoys me, that I don't want to be around it. And then on the other hand, I have like yesterday, I received a message of a man in Canada, and he's thanking me for all the messages throughout the years. He's saying, "Yeah, the dating scene is fucked up here, in Canada." And he says, and I take 100% responsibility to, to have the love life that I want. So I'm looking for a solution. And in that sense, you could also say it's complaining what he's saying about the Western world, but maybe it's not complaining because he's taking responsibility for his situation. It's like there's ways to describe a situation maybe that's not complaining. And with complaining is, I think inherently in the complaining is the idea that it's the fault. Someone else is responsible for the situation that I'm in. It's not
I
me.
think ultimately the test is if you are frustrated and you are voicing that and you are complaining, are you doing something about it? Are you reaching out for help around it? Are you seeking a way forward? And if you are doing that and you're getting feedback, you're called out to be accountable, to be responsible. Do you reject it with more complaining, or do you turn the lens inward and look at yourself and see who you can be?
Hmm.
Um, on our last episode, we talked about masculinity and we talked about masculine honor. When we talked about the essence of masculinity being courage, I mean, you wanted to boil it down kind of to one word, and that's what we landed on. But there's a concept I think of as masculine honor, and here I'm not talking about the feeling or the spirit of honor, but I'm talking about like the code of honor that there is amongst masculine men. It's more a code of respect, actually. Like if I have masculine honor, then I care about a sense of identity, a sense of myself as, let's say, a masculine man. I could use a different word there, but I kind of treasure and hold important to me being respected by other masculine men, right? This is what I'm calling masculine honor, a sense of masculine identity. And as we were setting up this call, we were saying, well, what should we title this? And you mentioned this poem, Invictus. I don't know the context of this poem, but there's a line in the poem where he says, I have not winced nor cried aloud. And he's, he's writing like as a warrior here, and he's bloodied. My head is bloodied, but unbowed, like he's still standing up tall. And he's on the he's on the verge of perhaps dying, being killed, but he's not complaining. He's not whinging. He's bloodied, but he's facing it, he's taking it. And at the end of the poem, he says, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And so I think there's a sense when we complain or when we judge, and we're using that complaint or judgment as a way out, as a way to not take responsibility, as a like an excuse. Well, it's like, well, I would be a man right in this moment, but insert complaint here, right? And so if you're doing that, you're essentially communicating to other men that you are not master of your fate. You are not captain of your soul. And that frustrates a man like you to be with or work with a guy like that, because there's not much you can do. If someone is in essence saying, I would be a man, but
Well,
they're saying, I'm not master of my fate, I'm not captain of my soul.
I am a victim. They would not say I would be a man. I'm thinking of specific situations. They would not say I am not a man, but I would be a man, but the situation is like this or this. It's just a focus on that situation. Like the world is like this, women are like that, the government
I'm
is like
saying
this.
that's how a man of masculine honor is going to hear it.
100%.
And they're
Yes.
not going to respect him for that reason.
Yes.
Because
So
the respect amongst masculine men, I mean, we mentioned courage as the major theme on the last call, but it's also about like owning responsibility. Like, I will suck it up. I'll take
yes.
responsibility. I'll be the one.
How in your work have you taught a man to take more responsibility? How have you shifted man out of victim mentality, out of entitlement, which is the opposite of taking responsibility, um, complaining, moaning, whining, wincing, and take him out of that into taking full responsibility? Because as far as I can see, someone who is in that position and sees himself as a victim, or at least sees the situation as not favorable to him, and it's just the truth, you know, like that. The last thing that person wants to do is take responsibility. Like that's the whole point, you know. So how did you have you in the past shifted someone like that, or is that someone you just stay away from?
Well, yeah, it's something I've grappled with for years working with men, of course. And I've used different approaches. Back when I had my landscaping business, me and my number one guy, we would have so many young guys come in to work for us and then not be able to handle it. There'd be an excuse, there'd be a whatever, right? Complaint, it's too hot, this, that, whatever. That we stopped calling them by their name when we hired them. And we would give them like G1, G2, G3, G4, and G stood for grommet. It's like a grommet is like a little hole in like a tarp or something. It's like a stupid word. I don't know where it came from, but it's kind of like you're insignificant. You get called G1 for grommet and then whatever number grommet we're on, right? Until you prove yourself, until you last a certain amount of time where you gain our respect, then we'll call you by your name. But otherwise, we're not going to waste our time. And, because there's a lot of young guys that want respect. They want respect, but they're not respectable in the sense of like man to man. Like you can't count on them. And this is something that men do across many groups and organizations and fraternities. It's like, we don't just respect you as a man coming in, you have to earn that respect. And once you prove that we can count on you, then we'll do something that shows that you're part of us now. But you don't get to just like sign up and be part of us. So I think that's
it's almost like as a yes, but that's almost like, that's hard, I would say, in a coaching situation, because if the person is there for that but is not taking responsibility, it's less likely to happen than if a person is there for another reason. For example, he's there with you to make money, or he's in a fraternity to be accepted, and he's more likely to go through that period, like he's more willing, I would say, to listen to that, or to understand that teaching, than if he's there. I'm just looking. I'm trying to find a way that in coaching, like imagine you can develop a formula where you can shift a man from being entitled to taking full responsibility. That would be huge.
I think there's a lot, but look at Wes Watson, for example. If you don't start communicating with him and then signing up and joining his team and acting a certain way from the very beginning, you're out, and he blocks you. It's like, you want his respect. That's a big part of how the transformation happens, is you want to be respected by him. And so because you do that, this is the extra impetus to do what he says, to get with the program, to stop whining and complaining. You ultimately want his respect. And part of what his marketing is basically, all you guys who have not signed up to my program are pussies, you're complainers, you're bitching, you're little children, really. When you're ready to be a man, then sign up to my program and, and get with the fucking program. And I'm sure that inside of his program, he also holds the line to where you don't get to sit and bitch and complain on his coaching calls. 100%, I'm sure that he would do it that way.
Yes, but now we're talking about someone else. My question was, how did you do it? How could we do it? And I can imagine doing it this way, what you just said about Wes Watson, but I'd be very interested in a formula to ensure this, not to like, because he'll stop working with men who are not starting to take responsibility, and
so what are you asking? How do you sign up a guy who's not responsible and then get him to be responsible?
how do you, is there a way that one could, is there a way to shift a man? What's the shortest way to shift a man from being entitled to being responsible?
I think I mean, there's a lot of variables there that we're kind of assuming are not variables, right? There's lots of different men with different background and lots of different guys at different ages. Like there's a lot of variables there. But one of the things that I started doing, because I ran into this with my I stands, my boot camps that I was running, and people who were not like already committed to being fully responsible would end up being a drag on the rest of the program. Like if you have boot camp, a group full of guys, and partly like there's a group dynamic that's powerful here, right? To where someone is ashamed to be acting at a lower level and they want to be with everyone else acting at the higher level, right? There's part of why it's part of a group dynamic where um, the group dynamic can contribute to the transformation. Um, in fact, there's large group awareness trainings that people who are skeptical of cults call out, and they're really skeptical of them because they use these group dynamics, kind of like cult-like dynamics, to support the transformation of the person. And so if you're in a program, let's say it's like the Landmark Forum, and the leader says something that triggers you, you're welcome to get up and go to the mic and interact with the leader. But because everyone looks up to the leader, if you're resisting him, he can mock you a little bit and everyone laughs. And then when everyone laughs, you're like, what am I not seeing about this that the whole room is seeing? And so then you look at yourself, and it can be more likely that then you'll listen to him and take the responsibility. Like there are group dynamics like that. But what I wanted to get to was what I started doing was having people get on the phone with me and commit to like 3 different things before they even sign up. And then once they come at the evening before the event, we go through an agreement line by line and they sign their name to it ahead of time. And when they do this, then during the event, they've already made an agreement of how they're going to play the game. So when they go astray or when they're not taking responsibility during the event, you don't have an ego battle with them. You don't engage in what they want to talk about. You go back to the rules of the agreement that they agreed to.
Yes.
You have to
Well,
talk about that.
yes. Well, again, that's with people who obviously want something, and then you get them to agree to that, to take full responsibility, but that's someone who signed up basically, who wants to sign up basically, that's
So who are
not
you
just a man.
Someone who gives you money but doesn't want to take responsibility.
I'm talking about men that I meet in life who are entitled, and I would love to be able to shift it into them taking responsibility, you know. And these are men who have not asked for help. When they've asked for help, yeah, it's much easier, you know. But if they haven't asked for help, what can I do? Like I'm seeing my I'm seeing my father, for example. I mean, it's not the only example, but and I'm seeing him complaining and criticizing and giving up his power and getting frustrated, and and yeah, I have no way other than to uh to change the subject, to honor him, to walk away. There's no there's no progress in that, and I'm having trouble helping, you know, and it's frustrating to me because I see him suffer from it, of course, you know, and therefore I would like to have him see that, you know, and he's 74, you know, and it's getting worse. He's getting grumpier with the year, you know, and I'm saying my father, but I know friends also like that, you know, and yeah, I've taken distance because I can't be around it, and I can say it a couple of times, and I can't find a way through, and I have to give it up, you know? And yeah,
Well, I'm starting to hear that like this is more about you and your suffering. Like you
yes,
want them to change, and it'll be easier on you.
yes, or I would have, yes, like with my father, it would be easier on me, but at the same time, he would suffer less. Or with a friend, you know, we could go deeper with that friendship, which is now impossible if he's not taking responsibility. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you're talking about a deep level of change. You're talking about like an identity level shift. Most people, most people change very little unless they take on a new identity, which means some kind of initiation, some kind of letting go of who they used to be, and then taking on a new identity. And usually that doesn't happen unless uh, people reach rock bottom or um, I mean, some spiritual insight happens that radically rocks their world. A combination of those two,
mhm,
or I mean, with my younger brothers, what happened was that one, one, I think that if you're not already embodying that behavior in a way that inspires them, I would say good luck, right? So that's a factor, is that you are a living example of the positive transformation that they would want to, that you're inviting them to shift into, right?
hmm.
Um,
Well,
but
mm, it's like with most men, it's a blind spot. Sure, they want the success, you know, they want the woman or the money or the fitness, but they don't see. They're not saying, "Oh, I want, I want to be able to take responsibility." It's a huge blind spot, you know. Like, I mean, I'm just looking at me. I it took me taking way more responsibility to realize that I wasn't taking as much responsibility as I thought I was. It was a blind spot.
well, I'll tell you that because I know the story there. I did use shaming. Like I didn't respect a lot of the, let's say, the complaints or the certain perspective that you would share that we're not taking responsibility. Like I wouldn't take it seriously.
Yes. I
And I go ahead.
We were already in a coaching relationship, you know, so you could set up agreements there. You could, like, I already asked for help in a way, and so
I think
then
the,
it's,
but I think I was kind of calling you out and kind of laughing at you in some ways before that.
but that doesn't always work because I'm calling you out in some ways. You're not responding to that at all.
Yeah, well, I think it goes to like, does the person desire the transformation that you're inviting them to, you know?
Yes,
And do they want to, do they trust your intentions also, you
that's
know?
what I'm saying. It's almost like no one is going to come to you and say, "Hey, I want to learn how to take more responsibility." It's like that shift has to happen alongside another skill that's learned or another inside another container, you know, like no one is coming to me and say, "Hey, I'm entitled." I need to take more responsibility. Please help me. Like you could like within the context of say women, I can teach guys that they want to be better with women, and I see that they're not taking responsibility. They come to me to be better with women, and I can start there. Within that context, that works. It's the same when I come to you for I mean, you coach me on business in that sense. Within that context, I can learn to take more responsibility, but it's a blind spot, and therefore is not something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our entire belief systems, our narrations, the identities that we've carved out, all of these things are to avoid the responsibility, to be avoid the pain of taking on more responsibility than we've already agreed to do, in a way. Like everything that makes up our conscious identity and the things we tell
Okay,
ourselves
well,
is
that's not
designed
true, Michael,
to
because
help us be comfortable with a certain level of responsibility.
that's not true, because now I'm in a place where I know that if I'm suffering, my next thing is to take more responsibility. Like I know it, and that's where I look. Whereas before, I would have a younger man, I would be suffering, and it would not set up, it would not trigger in me the reflex. I got to take more responsibility. The opposite. So something happened there along the way that is because I'm not that man anymore that you just described. You know, like
Well, I
my
mean,
belief system is avoiding.
right, right. But you're now conscious of the mechanisms that would have you avoid responsibility. And so it no longer works, because if you use the same methods you used before to avoid responsibility, now you're aware of what you're doing, you know.
Yes. So what
And
happened there?
you're also surrounded by someone who's going to call it out, you know.
Yes.
So let me go back to my experience with my younger brothers, because one of the things that happened with them is I went out of my way to make an intervention in their lives and to go back for them and rescue them in a kind of way, right? For their own good, for their liberation, for their power. And so there was
Were
a
they
deep
asking
trust.
you?
Sorry.
Were they asking you, or you just showed up?
Uh, my brother was kind of making a cry for help, like, Mike, help.
Why are you laughing about that?
Dad's trying to get me to go on a mission, and I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to go. Why am I laughing? Um, I don't know. I kind of see it like a cartoon or something, like, and then I come riding in on my hero horse or whatever. But and my little brother, it wasn't a direct cry for help, but he was shooting with his friends at school buses and things like that, and I'm like, that's not a cry for help, you know. So, um, and I just started helping them as well. Like I took them under my wing, and ultimately I shared big visions with them of what was possible for their life. And, I just made a passionate case for their power and their future. And, um, yeah. And we had the group dynamics as well, right? It wasn't just like one to one. There was four of us. There was me and the
So
three of
I
them.
do see what's constant in these stories of taking more responsibility is that there was a request, there was a cry for help, there's something, and within that context, like you can answer that on the condition that you can answer that with the agreement and once you have that agreement, then you can refer back to it. Like Elena and I have an agreement in our intentional relationship that each one of us is 100% responsible for. So I'm responsible for my emotional well-being, meaning I will never hold her responsible for the way I feel, and she will never hold me responsible for the way I feel. Now that's the agreement, and of course sometimes it happens as a trigger, and then all you don't discuss it, you go back to the agreement, you know, like we have this agreement, do you want to change it? And that's, you know, but that's within a that's within a an intentional relationship, you know, and that first came with me asking her, you want to start a more intentional relationship? Yes, you know. So like it seems like the taking of more responsibility needs a broader container, you know, needs a broader container in which.
Yeah, it's like, why would I want to take on more pain, right? Why would I want to take on a heavier load? You know, the more responsibility just occurs as a burden, right? Without a vision or something greater, without a why to do it, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, one of the things that I have used again and again and again is that kind of like, I'm not going to give you the same level of respect that I would give to a man who takes responsibility. And and I'm not going to sit there and entertain your bullshit narrations and excuses, especially if you work for me. You know, like if I'm paying you money, I had in my landscaping business, when guys would show up even 1 second late, they were they would have to get down and do push-ups on the front porch, and it's a public street, right? In fact, there's a sorority across the street, and these are young guys. Like, like you're paying the consequence, you know? And by the way, young guys love this. Young guys love to be held accountable in that kind of a way. Um, yeah, because they want that respect. They want the respect of a man who holds a high standard. And I think that's a big, I mean, if I would say something to you, I think you're talking also about like previous clients and stuff like that. Um, there could be maybe less of a trying to get them to do something and simply kind of calling out the behavior that doesn't, you know, like we can't do this together unless, you know, you're willing to do that. And it's just, and yeah, they have to, from whatever place, they have to come to a place where they're ready. One of the things I started doing with my eye stands, like in March 2007, I came back after Africa and with this idea, I'm going to give it for the first time just to the people I really want to give it to. And I thought, who are those people? And I thought, really courageous people who are up to like changing the world or standing for humanity. So I put a call out for 30 visionaries from around the world willing to face everything, avoid nothing, and stand for humanity. So, first of all, most people are not going to feel called by that. Most people are not going to answer that call just because they're going to be like, "Holy shit, that's a lot. That's heavy." You know. So I knew it was only going to attract a certain group of people. And then even if they are attracted by that, they had to register with a certain kind of serious commitment. They had to fill out a detailed application process that took effort. Then the first night they have to make agreements and sign on the dotted line face to face with me in front of the rest of the group. Like it, but once you get, you know, I think that that's very attractive in itself. If you have like only the elite make it into this group or to being a client with me or something like this, that's very attractive. And I think it also sets the stage for faster transformation, because once you jump through the hoop, now you want to maintain the respect of the group, right? And the leader. You want to keep that respect. You want to, and yeah, so there's some powerful dynamics there.
Yes. What I take from this is, it needs to, it needs a request from the other to create a container within which this transformation is possible. And yeah, I'm just looking at, like, imagine my father, Well, you don't have to imagine it, but I'm sitting in the car with him, and he's and spending time with him at home, and he's complaining and moaning and bitching against the TV, And I'm like, well, it makes me laugh also. And I noticed that with time, I'm like, fuck, I can't be around this, I can't do it. And yeah, I guess I wish I would suffer less from that, you know. I
Well,
wish I
again,
would suffer less from him complaining, but also, and I think mainly because I see he's complaining, he's suffering from it, and I can't do
but is he,
anything. Yeah.
it kind of sounds like he enjoys it.
Well, no,
And
he doesn't. He doesn't. I can't,
some
like, I
people
can't
enjoy,
stand that. I can't stand that.
some
He's
people are addicted though, but some people are addicted to their misery.
well, yeah, but that's not answering me. Yeah, that's not an answer to my question.
Well, I mean, I hear you in part saying that it would be better for you. I hear that's your main emphasis, even though you
No, no,
said
no.
the
It's
main.
not my main. I know you say it's my main emphasis, but it's not. It's not. It's my father is suffering, and I wish he wouldn't. I wish
Who's
he'd be
suffering? Who's suffering more, him or you when you're sitting there with him and
in
he's going
general
through
in that moment.
in that moment?
He is suffering more.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man.
Hey, Michael, it seemed like you made up your mind. I'm telling you, like the way he goes off in traffic. I can't stand it, you know.
Right. But he's not trying to solve it.
I- if you were to ask him, I'm convinced that he thinks he's trying to solve it. He's trying to solve it by complaining about it.
Have you asked him that?
Yeah, like a million times. Are you feeling better when you complain? Is this solving anything? A million times.
What does he say?
And I I'm just saying it, but it's true.
Yeah, I still hear that it's mostly an issue for you.
Yes. Well,
He's
you're
got his
wrong.
routine. He's got his routine there, like maybe the guy with an addiction who, yeah, he's escaping something, but mostly he's just high all the time. Like he's already solved it with the addiction. It's not really an issue for him.
No, man, he's way more. I'll leave it at that because I can see I can't. You made up your mind, but he's suffering from that way more than I am. His whole
But
life
here's
he's
here's
dealing with
what
it.
I'm saying is he has his way, he has his coping mechanisms, he has his solutions, and he keeps doing them over and over and over. So on some level, he's content.
Well, yes, of course. Of
But this
course.
is my point. This is my point. You're looking for a whole new way to solve this so that this cycle ends. He's got a coping mechanism. He's not trying to change the whole thing. He doesn't see the issue as his to solve beyond just complaining about it.
I don't think that's true. I think that I see that the solution to the problem is within him, and he thinks that the solution for this big problem is outside of him.
Right. Which means
So
it's
he
not his to
is,
solve.
yes, but he is trying to solve it. He's trying to solve it by complaining and saying, this is what should happen. They should put the signs here. Like, how is this possible? You know? And for him, complaining about it is like the first step to a solution.
I interpret that more like it's a compromise solution, right? Like obviously it doesn't end his suffering, but it makes him a little bit more comfortable in the moment or feel a little bit more powerful in the
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
So my point is, here you're talking about responsibility, right? I don't think that unless he really gets even his coping mechanism and the way he thinks about it as his problem, like he's the one causing his suffering, he has no reason to try to do anything different.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. But he is seeing a problem, and he is suffering from something. He's just looking at the problem in a different way and looking for the solution in a different way. Yeah.
Well, he's defining the problem as in the way that has him solving it the way he is. So I think, one of the things is like if you can have someone see that they are actually creating the problem that they are suffering from, and they can feel the pain of doing that thing to themselves and live in an
Yeah, but
environment where they're,
that is the last thing he would want to hear or realizing that. But the last thing, not just something he's not thinking about. That's what he's trying to avoid, by saying that it's the other, So
right, exactly.
he's running away from it as hard as he can. It's not just a blind spot, It's like
So
everything but
he's
not
good.
that.
He's good. Why are you trying to solve a problem that he doesn't have?
No. There's of course
You're
my
the
problem.
one.
There's of
You have
course
a
my
problem.
problem. There's of course my problem, but there's no denying that he suffers, and he suffers a lot, and he's looking for a solution, and he's just looking in the wrong place.
Yeah. You both define the problem very differently though, and that's the key thing. So
Well, let's say this. Let's say the issue is his suffering. We would agree on it. He would say, I'm frustrated. I would say he's frustrated. Okay? We're trying to solve that. He's trying to solve it by changing the world. And I'm saying, look at yourself. And it's not such a big, to me, it's the same problem. It's just a different solution, And how could I, what can I do for him to look in a different place and solve the issue, and suffer less?
well, I would question that. Is it the same problem? I would bet that it's only a problem for him right in that moment when someone does something that annoys him or whatever.
Right.
And as soon as then he responds the way he does, he's kind of good. He's done his part. Like
Yes.
at least he's not complicit with it. He's voiced his displeasure with it. He's done his thing. Now he's okay. Now it's okay. It's intolerable now. But to me, you see the problem as more of a long-term thing, that this keeps happening over and over and over again, and
Yes,
he's in long-term suffering.
that's
That's
true.
why I say, like, you see this as a much bigger thing. He's just annoyed in that one moment when someone does
Yes,
something annoying.
and it's that guy on the TV, and then it's the traffic signs are misplaced, and then the weather doesn't know what it wants, and then his girlfriend, and it's like, for him it's a series of completely independent things that just keep bothering him. Like, again, now it's this. Yes, that's true. That's true. In that sense, the problem for him is different than the problem I define. But we have a common ground. We have a common ground, which is his suffering. So thank you for not helping me, Michael, but I'm going to find a way. And I'm going to start there.
It's okay. I can tell you're content with your suffering.
I'm going to start with the suffering because we agree there. And I would tell him that. Like, I would ask him that, you know, does that, do you suffer from it?
I'll tell you, he might be more incentivized to help you with your problem than to take on the problem that you think he has.
Right. I like that. Where I say,
He could
listen,
be,
man,
he could be a
I,
hero in helping you, out of your suffering.
yes, yes. And I would not say like others are suffering as well, you know. Hey, would you like to help me relieve me from my suffering? Stop complaining.
Just go to him and say, Dad, men do not wince nor cry aloud. You are the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul. And then if he takes full responsibility, he's a man. If not, he's a child.
I know what he would say to that. Well, in I would translate it to Dutch, but he would say, yeah, in theory. It's easy for you to say things like that.
The apple falleth not far from the tree.
Yes.
All right. This concludes this session.
I think it's great. I think it's great. I know how I want to approach that next time I see him. All right. We'll see each other next time. I don't know when the next one is, Monday or Tuesday.
Whatever
Probably
it
Monday.
is, Wince
See you
not.
there.